Both present immense opportunities and significant challenges that demand innovative solutions and robust policy support. So, we would now request the participants for the session to please come up. First up, we have Sri Ajay Talgaonkar, Member ENC Central Electricity Authority, Government of India. Please join me in welcoming Sri Talgaonkar to the stage. Let's please hear it for Sri Talgaonkar as he heads up the stage. He has also been serving as the ex officio additional secretary to the Government of India since 13 July 2022. Sri Talgaonkar heading towards the stage. We also to have a panel discussion in which our moderator would be Sri Anish Dey, Global Head for Energy and Natural Resources, KPMG. He is an acclaimed energy sector expert with a distinguished track record in corporate strategy, reform, and restructuring. We are also joined by Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General, International Solar Alliance. Dr. Ajay Mathur, with over 30 years of experience in energy policy, climate change, and sustainable development, he has played a key role in advancing solar initiatives that foster international collaboration and technology transfer. We are also joined by Sri Kulman Singh, Managing Director, Nepal Electricity Authority. Can the applauses be louder as we acknowledge the presence of our panelists? Shri Singh is renowned for resolving severe power cuts in Nepal, managing domestic demands, and promoting regional cooperation. We also have Sri Dasho Chewang Rinzin, Managing Director, Drug Green Power Corporation Limited. Before his current role, Mr. Rinzin headed Bhutan Power Corporation Limited, the public sector transmission and distribution utility of Bhutan. Shri Manoj Kumar Jhawar, CMD, PTC India Limited. It's pretty quiet at the moment. His areas of expertise encompass commercial operations, policy planning, budgeting, contract negotiations, project financing, and smart metering. We also have Sri S.K. Suni, former and founder, CEO, POSCO. Now, representing the industry viewpoint in the panel would be Sri Rohit Bajaj, Joint Managing Director, Indian Energy Exchange. Sri Satyajit Ganguly, Managing Director and CEO, PXIL. Let's hear it, please, for Sri Ganguly. Sri Shyam Kumar, CGM, NVVN Limited. Also joining us would be Sri Ashok K. Ocha, Chief Finance Officer, Hindustan Exchange Limited. Hindustan Power Exchange Limited would be represented by Sri Ashok K. Ocha. Also joining us would be Dr. S.A. Soman, Professor, Department of Electrical Engineering, IIT Bombay, providing us the academic perspective. So that completes our panel. And now we'd request Sri Ajay Talgaonkar, Member, ENC Central Electricity Authority, Government of India, to impart us with the context for the topic cross-border trade and the energy market.
Good morning, esteemed fellow panelists, session moderators, Yanish Deji, experts, and my colleagues and professionals sitting in the audience. On behalf of CA and on behalf of myself, I welcome you to the session 8, which is on cross-border trade and energy market. I will be setting the context for the further discussion that will take place in the session. So coming to just background that any motivation for any kind of electricity trading is same as that for any other commodity. Basically, it gives you flexibility, it saves your cost, and the same thing applies for electricity also. But the only thing is that being a special commodity, we have to have some other technical rules and some technical considerations are there, which we have to follow. Now, as far as India is concerned, I mean, that's before in the last century, there were hardly any transaction taking place between the utilities. I think reasons were twofold. One was obviously it was a shortage scenario, so most of the states were facing shortages. So opportunities for surpluses and shortage-based exchanges were limited. And but more than that, even when there were opportunity, the issue was there was complete opacity of information. It was not really known that who is having surplus from whom we can buy. And more than that, there was also lack of any mechanism for discovery of price. I remember a case when there were two entities. One was insisting that surplus, he was that utility was insisting that I should be paid 2 rupees. Other was saying I will pay at most 1.5 rupees. I mean, I'm talking about 90s. And then there were long discussions. And someday there was some meeting in the CA and in the chamber of members, and then he suggested why not do averaging, and then they all agreed. So I mean, basically there was no mechanism, there was no price discovery, there was no trader there to facilitate, there was no exchange. So all this was creating problems. So even when there were opportunities, there were no trading was taking place. But things changed. Things changed in 2003 when the trading was recognized as a distinct activity. So many traders came. Today we have more than 60 traders licensed by CRC, which are operating. And then another provision was in the Electricity Act of Development of Markets, under which CRC came out with the guidelines for setting of exchanges. And today we have three power exchanges operating in the country. This gave a big major boost to electricity trading in the country. As far as cross border is concerned, if we look at in the region, we had long relationship of electricity trading with Nepal and Bhutan. Nepal was primarily importing from India traditionally, whereas we were importing power from Bhutan. There are four intergovernmental projects operating in Bhutan from which we get the power, and in addition to that, there are a couple of other projects also. So, so I mean, till recently, we were importing mainly from Bhutan, and electricity trading with Bangladesh is relatively recent. In 2013, when the HVDC link was set up, then the power trading with export to Bangladesh started. But in the last couple of years, things have changed. It is heartening to note that economic activities have picked up in Bhutan and they have started importing in a big way from India, particularly during winter months when they have limited hydro. They import substantial amount of electricity from India. And similarly, in the reverse is taking place in Nepal. There are a lot of hydro projects have been commissioned and now they are surplus. So they are exporting electricity to India. So far, they were doing mainly selling in the power exchanges, but we have observed that I think recently they have entered into medium-term agreements also with the discoms of India. So these are things are changing. As far as Myanmar is concerned, we have only one 11 kV line in which power is exported. It is insignificant. But what is noteworthy is that we are having discussion with countries like Sri Lanka, Singapore, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Maldives for transnational links. Some of them may be undersea cables. Uh, I think the discussion with Sri Lanka is at the most ripe stage. The DPR has also been prepared. So we hope that in coming years we will hear more in that context. These are just the figures I just told you, so I will skip that to save the time. But these are just numbers which capture that how the import and export from Bhutan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Myanmar is taking place in the last 5 years. In order to promote the cross-border trade, Government of India issued some guidelines in 2018. Uh, the two main noteworthy features of these guidelines is that it gives a basic framework as to how a transmission link will be planned between the two countries. That is, it relates to planning and execution of transmission line, and it also talks about the operation of the grids, how the combined grids will be operated, how the two NLDCs will talk to each other, what criteria will be there to ensure that power flow is within the limits. So all these are basically part of its guidelines. And recently, Government of India has also allowed that on case-to-case basis, we can use the power purchase from hydro stations in the neighboring countries for setting up our RPO obligations also, that is renewable hydro obligations which are there in the that also can be met from imported, but it is on case-to-case basis. A big thing, I mean, taking shape in the regional cooperation is this Bay of Bengal initiative, where there are seven partner countries, and of course, there are seven areas of cooperation. One of them is security, in which India is the lead, and in the security, there is a subsector of energy. So there are a lot of discussions are taking place. I believe that there are two policy documents, one on planning of transmission and one of trade, are in the final stages, and shortly they may be finalized. A BIMSTEC Energy Center is being set up in Bengaluru. Uh, it is being chaired by the uh, chairperson. CA is the Director General of that BIMSTEC Energy Center. The two recent initiatives have given a big fillip to the concept of transnational grids. One is, of course, the formation of International Solar Alliance, which took place in 2015. It was also India's initiative. India and France took initiative, and this was set up. And in one of the first assembly of 2018, this idea of one sun, one world, one grid was launched, and it got further boost in the COP21, in the COP which held in COP summit in 2021 at Glasgow, where India and UK proposed that one sun, world, one grid initiative. We hope that in future, many of the regional grids, national grids will get connected under these initiatives. The idea is simple, that sun is shining at different point of time in different countries, so we can use that diversity, and so power can flow from where sun is flowing to other countries where there is relatively darkness. So this in future, I think we can hear a lot about it, and then it will. And today it is heartening that more than 100 countries have already joined ISA. So this is a big movement which is taking shape. Now, what is happening in Indian market also affects the neighboring countries because they are buying and selling from here. So let us have a look at that. What is happening? As India embarks on the path of energy transition, we will need some changes in the market. First and foremost, because of uh, intermittency of these sources, renewable sources, we will have to strengthen our forecasting and planning. I think RA initiative, that is the resource adequacy initiative taken by Government of India and CA, is one step in this direction. We will have to incentivize flexibility either through markets or through regulatory mechanism that we have to see. We feel that still there is a lot of uh, hidden surpluses which are not coming out in the market, and this diversity we are not able to fully use, even though we have large national grid. We have to use it that to our fullest extent. Time sequential market operations will be important. We already have time sequential operation like time open first, followed by the RTM and all that. But now new products will come. We will have more products in the term ahead market. We will have capacity markets also. The sequencing will become important so that we can harness the entire diversity. And obviously, ancillary service will be there because it is the backbone of reliability. Ultimately, if something happens, ancillary service should be there to support the system. There is a big picture about what is the share of short-term market, and so it is about 15% of energy supplied in the country is in short-term market, and half of it comes uh, from the power exchanges. The share is steadily growing, but it is still not what we wanted because competitive day-ahead markets actually bring out the entire efficiency. When I say the first bullet that the it is dominated by inflexible long-term contracts, what I mean is that even long-term itself is a kind of inflexibility. But it's not that all long-term contracts are bad. When the new technologies comes, we will need long-term contracts because then financiers, FIIs, they will get security if we have a long-term arrangement for newer technologies. But for established technology, we can certainly go for short-term, and we have already taken a step in this direction. That in case of coal and renewable projects, solar and wind, we have reduced the time frame from 25 years to 15 years as the minimum period for long-term agreement. Already government guidelines talk about that. So inflexibility is in, again, I will just bit dwell on that. Inflexibility is in the sense of two ways. From the buyer's point of view, he sees that even if he has, because of by mistake or wrong forecasting, over contracted, they have to pay fixed charges even though they are not using that power. So that is inflexibility from the point of view of buyer. But from the seller's point of view, now what you see is that there are two ways. One is that even if the buyer is not buying power, they find it difficult to sell in the market. First of all, because most of the PPA have provision that they will have to take permission from the original buyer, which is not always forthcoming. And secondly, there's a fuel issue that if they sell in the exchange, and there is linkage coal is made available, and there is a kind of ambiguity that whether this linkage coal based uh, uh, power generated can be sold in the market because of FSA provision. Though government guidelines and the LPSC rule make it clear that it can be done so. So these are now coming to challenges. I already discussed the dominance of inflexible and longer duration contracts, so that we have to try to reduce this long duration. There is also a practice of self-scheduling. What I mean by it is that every discom is having its own portfolio and they are trying to manage their own portfolio, they are trying to optimize their own portfolio. But in this process, the system optimization is not taking place. The first principle and fundamental principle of optimization is that optimization of parts does not lead to optimization of whole. So that is the problem with that. I mean, every discom is doing optimization, but still, sometimes the cheaper generation resources are not getting fully utilized. We have to see how it can be done. One way could be, of course, market-based economic dispatch. That was concept was floated by CRC some time ago, but we have to see how it can be, we can do it. Another challenge is how to bring RE resources into the market. What I mean by market here is uh, in the power exchanges, because we are seeing that the PPAs are not forthcoming as far as renewable sources are concerned. But our wisdom shows us that the the clearing price in the market is generally more than 3 rupees or something like that, three and a half, even if that is the average price in sometimes 4 rupees. But solar, we see that actually the discovered price is 2.5. So obvious question is that why solar cannot directly come to the market. So we have already, CA has prepared the guidelines for bringing them in the market. It is under consideration of Government of India, Ministry of Power. Hopefully, there will be some traction in this regard. And one more point I wanted to bring to notice is that because of inherent issues, this 14 rupees or 15 rupees gas-based power station, though we need it sometime during French period, but we are not able to schedule it through the power exchanges. Just to summarize the points for panel discussion, just a food for thought that how to bring the capacity contracting mechanism. Uh, that will be enough flexibility should be given. It can be done through long-term contract. It can be through capacity markets that you think of. Interstate security constraint economic dispatch brings a lot of efficiency. It has already been implemented. But the issue is that how can we bring intrastate SCED also? And I know Sony sir is working on this area. Hopefully, he will provide some insight into it. Then we have to do something to some regulatory changes may be required so that aggregation of demand response and distributed generation can take place because they can contribute in the market. Another question before us is that about the derivative market. The question is not that we should have derivative market or not. And everybody I think will agree that we need to have derivative market, but the question is about timing. What is the right time for introducing the derivative market? I already talked about RE dispatch. Of course, all market participants need to have full faith in the price discovery mechanism. Therefore, it is very essential that we should have a robust market monitoring and surveillance mechanism. Because if the faith of participants gets shaken by somehow, then we will not be able to increase the liquidity that what we want. We have to also think of what are legal policy and regulatory measures are required. We also need to think about what skill building can be done for professionals who are operating either in discoms or generating companies or any all the fields of power sector. We need physical infrastructure. In fact, transmission is the bedrock requirement on which the market works efficiently. If there is a lack of transmission, if there is some transmission constraint, then market will suffer. So this is very essential that we continue on the path of expanding transmission as per requirement that we have done so far. Then accounting settlement deviation will need to be strengthened. One more issue that we should consider is instead of 15-minute deviation settlement, can we go for 5-minute deviation settlement? It has a lot of advantages that we can discuss. And then obviously when we talk of transnational power flows, we have to have harmonization of technical and regulatory standards. Grid code should be in harmony. These are fundamental requirements. With this, I think I will end my context setting presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taligaonkar, for a wonderful lay of the land. We have something from you, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Shri, and thank you, Shri Talgaonkar, as well, for highlighting, among other things, India's proactive approach to regional energy cooperation, highlighting further potential for mutually beneficial energy agreements while also throwing light on the path ahead, factoring in the challenges and opportunities. Up next, we have a very special video message from Dr. Jyoti Parikh, Executive Director of Integrated Research and Action for Development.
Over several decades, CEA has successfully led the country through many transitions, technical, institutional, and environmental challenges, as well as reforms. The CEA decisions concern every aspect of the power sector, directly or indirectly: generation, transmission, distribution, trading, investors, and many more. Starting from fragmented grids, CEA evolved from state grid to regional grids, with then on to a synchronous national grid, which is the largest in the world. Currently, its aim is to even go beyond India through the interconnections with neighboring countries and offer them support in terms of capacity building, planning, and offering database services to the South Asian countries. Country's transmission network consists of about 5 lakh circuit of transmission and lines, and CEA has made India a country with the largest grid in the world. It has also now challenged on internal power trade with the neighboring authorities, adding institutional challenges. Power markets have been created, leading to power going from surplus to deficit areas, increasing efficiency of utilization. Trading of power across the country has grown at the rate of over 30% CAGR. Privatization and competition has been brought into the sector, adding institutional challenges along with technical challenges. Institutional reforms have taken place in the power sector. Technical standards have been made by CEA to ensure a level playing field between the public sector and private sector utilities. The generation capacity may grow more than threefold over the next few decades. Moreover, climate change and energy security have thrown further challenges to completely transform our fossil fuel dependent system to renewable energy system. Thanks to the CEA, the country is managing this energy transition successfully. It is my privilege to thank their leadership in power sector.
A very reassuring and insightful address. We are grateful to Dr. Parikh, and now it's over to our moderator, Sri Anish Dey.
Thank you. And it's such a pleasure to have such a constellation of stars from the sector, especially in the area of power trading, cross-border energy trade, and also associated areas like, we have Dr. Mathur from the ISA, which is playing a key role in getting renewables, which is becoming a bedrock of the sector. Uh, as we go into the subject, I'm going to lay out a little bit of the ground rules. Uh, we are we have lots of panelists and lots of wisdom to draw out from. So I'm going to put questions across to you. Of course, Mr. Taligaonkar has given a very, very good context, so you can pick themes from there as well as in addressing my questions. And only request is that be brief, so that we can go out around the room and have an engagement and interaction. So a brainstorming session. CE has planned it as a brainstorming session. I'm seeing that that's really happening over the last yesterday. Today also we'll extend that spirit. Just as a quick start to what happened, I was personally very involved in the early days of markets with CA, but even before that, with Mr. Shahi, who was sitting here as a Union Power Secretary when the Electricity Act was, enacted. And at that time, I remember Mr. Shahi, I'm very grateful for that event, again organized by CII, which is coordinating this event also, where you were explaining the benefit of the and at that time, we came across that coinage, which is the act is all about freedom to buy and freedom to sell. That is at the center of the act, and I remember you, emphasizing that point again at various other forums. So this is the for freedom which the Electricity Act has given us. It has definitely made great progress, but there's also some distance to cover because if you look at the amount of power traded within the country through the market, the organized market, or bilaterally, or in the region, it can be a lot higher. That's the fundamental premise with which we are going into this session. And if we have to make that a lot higher for the benefits which Mr. Taligaonkar mentioned can be derived from that, then some changes have to be made. So what we are going to focus on this session is not so much on what has happened till now, but on what changes are necessary. And I would suggest that we keep three time frames in mind: 2025, 2030 or 32, depending on what your take is, and 2047 when is we are aiming for Viksit Bharat in its full form. So the immediate, the near to mid-term, and the longer term, how the sector needs to evolve, recognizing fully well that in a sector like ours, where investments run for their life for 50, 100 years, even solar, people are giving guarantees for generation for 30 years. Okay, whatever decision we take now has a long-term implication. So with that, let me just start with Mr. Jawar. Manoj Kumar Jawar, Chairman and Managing Director of PTC India. You were there trading electricity even before the Electricity Act came in, and since then you have seen the full evolution. You have promoted multiple exchanges, okay, and you remain a key player in regional trade as well. So, just a very very quick take from you on some of the themes which are coming out. Having seen the progress, what should be on the table as priorities for enhancing within the country as well as cross-border trade?
All right. Thank you, Anish. A few quick observations. Number one, if we look at the status of the energy trade, around 1800 billion units every year trading we are currently doing. Out of that, international trade is hardly 1% of that. Only 17 or 18 billion unit we are actually trading through the cross-border exchanges. So that itself is an indication that there is a tremendous potential to grow the international trade. Now there are few impediments and how we can go about that is another issue. We will be addressing those issues. Within the country also, as Mr. Talgaonkar sir has also said that we are currently only trading about 15% of the electricity through the market, and our 85% is still being traded to the long-term inflexible contracts. Now, to signal the right kind of investments in the market, again, depth of the market has to increase. So, one other question was like this: ki, when is the right time to start the futures market in the power sector? I would like to submit that I think unless and until we are having a very vibrant and an in-depth market for the spot prices and actual trading in the electricity market, I think planning about the future hedgings and futures market would be a little bit premature. Now, coming to the international trade, there are a few things which I would like to, submit for the brainstorming in this elite session. I think if we have to grow the trade, then there are few fundamental building blocks which require a trade to flourish. In international arenas, of course, technical compatibility would be a sine qua non for development of any trade in electricity. Beside that, any trader would want is a assurance about the investments which he is putting into that kind of trade. So what happens that boils down to the PPS, the nature of the PPS and the payment security mechanism. Now, payment security mechanism in the international context can be a tricky affair. Oftentimes, even if you are having sovereign guarantees or even if you are having bank guarantees from the counterparties of that host country, oftentimes in our own experience, we have found that those securities when difficult situation arises are really inadequate. So that is one thing, that payment security, to develop a vibrant power market across the nations in the South Asian region, we basically need to address this issue of payment security mechanism. Second thing is, how do you arbitrate the contracts if there are, competing claims about something? Uh, Usually speaking, all the contracts would have some international trade arbitration mechanism, etc., in place. But if we know, I think if we can evolve an institutional mechanism in which the participating countries, with the approval of the government, can have a permanent sort of arbitration center, I think that can go a long way in development of the trade. That is second thing I would like to say. Third thing is regarding the restrictions, which are basically administrative in nature more than anything else. Like our partner countries, when I speak to Bhutan, when I speak to Nepal, what they want is that when they need the power to buy the power from the exchanges, they need a certain assurance that that power would be available every year, let us say for a reasonable amount of time frame, let us say 3 years or 5 years. Now, currently, the regulations say that every year they have to approach the Indian regulators, and the approval to buy them is granted on year-to-year basis. So that is one point which invariably comes in discussion with all my counterparts in neighboring countries. That is one thing. Second thing, we have restricted their participation in DEM market and RTM market only. So why not? Can we really open up the other sectors of the market also for our international partners? Because you see, again, I would like to emphasize that only 1% of electricity trade is happening in the international borders. I don't think it is grossly going to distort anything in Indian markets, even if they are allowed to participate in these markets. So these are the initial ideas I would like to submit before you.
Thank you. And I think that's very important because one thing I picked up from Mr. Talagavkar's address is that the word case by case. Okay. And I'm, having worked in markets for last 20 years, starting with the Electricity Act onwards, case by case worries me. Case by case is always a, thing for, delays, disappointments, lack of planning, all of which leads to suboptimization. Now, I'm going to go over to Rohit Bajaj from IEX. Fortunately, organized platforms don't work case by case. Okay, but there's also a limited role these platforms have played thus far. It's a very important role. So I'm not taking away the importance, but I'm sure your aspirations are to be much larger part of it, and that possibly takes away a lot of that case by case, quote unquote case by case. So your thoughts to start with.
Yeah, Anish, you are right in saying so. Let me also take it one step forward where Mr. Jawar has left. So, if I talk about exchanges platform, we have seen trading increasing from 1 BU in the first year to close to 4 BUs now. And one thing is unique for our region. All of us are struggling, if not throughout the year, but many times in a year, we are struggling for energy security. And I must tell you, in last 1 year, together, all of us has supported each other in a very big way. I remember days when we had severe shortage of power during the peak hour, and Nepal was supplying 17, 18 million unit in a day, which is substantial because if I compare it with the total dam volume, this is almost more than 10% of the total trade that was happening at that point in time. Today, we have more than 15 generating stations registered with us. We have policy of case by case, but we have progressed to a level where we have 15 stations registered with us. We are getting all the NOCs mostly in time, and because of that, these transactions are happening. You have asked about where we want to go by, let's say, 2030, 32. Till now, what we have is pure play energy market. When anybody is coming to the market, they are trying to meet their demand from spot market on very short term basis. It is for day ahead, or they are participating in the real time market to meet their demand in just 1 hour in advance. So as we are dealing with energy transition, it has become very important. Now we should start looking beyond the spot market, only energy market. And Mr. Talgaonkar also mentioned in his presentation, we should have something which is a little longer in term, where we can offer capacities also, where we can offer flexibilities also, because flexibility is the keyword. As the clean mix is, energy mix is changing, renewable proportion is increasing, variability increasing in such a high pace. we cannot survive, and all the grid operators will agree with me, unless we have very good, very vibrant, very liquid products available at exchange where we should be able to meet flexibility in a big way. It is very difficult to go forward. So I'll leave it here. Just to summarize, I want to say that we should have capacity plus energy contract, which are little where you have secured some capacity. At the same time, you are maneuvering your energy requirement by using the flexibility that contract will provide. We should incentivize flexibility by having something more, which we are not doing in terms of demand management, in terms of demand response through markets. Then the trust that we have introduced, tertiary ancillary, that has also not picked up the way we wanted it. I think something needs to be done on that front as well. And we should also include all our neighbors, all the cross border entities into the bigger fold where these things can be addressed and we can work together.
Thanks, Rohit. In the later part of the discussion, we will bring out the elements of market design, and we have Professor Soman and Mr. Sooni who are so deep into both of these elements. We'll come back to them, but at this time, I want to go over to Dr. Chevan MD of Power, for his views. Your case has already been made by the previous speakers in some sense, but we want to hear it from you about how do you see this relationship, which has been a very deep relationship starting in 1978, if I recall, from Chukha Tala, and now much deeper, multiple projects coming on from there. What is your view of how the regional trade can be beneficial for all parties and what needs to be done for that?
Uh, Thank you very much, first of all, to CA for inviting us from Bhutan to be part of this uh, brainstorming, as you call it. As India looks to 2047, we are also looking to work with India to 2047. As Ajay Talunga mentioned, over the last 3 years, although we were always an exporter of power, over the last 3 years, during the winter months, we are now importing power from India, and that's a big changeover for us. And as was mentioned by Mr. Anish also, that unless there is reliability, unless there is a surety as to whether you're going to get that power or not, it's very difficult for you to plan into the future, especially when you're looking at energy exchanges, also at long-term power purchase agreements. Based on that, of course, now we find in Bhutan especially that our demand is growing very fast, the domestic demand. It has grown from 450 about 4 years back to about 1,100 now. Next year, 1,600. By 2034, we are expecting that it will touch about 3,700. By 2040, we are expecting that it will go to about 4,100 megawatts because a lot of things are being planned in turn, especially with the uh, aspirations to build the Gelifo Mindfulness City, which you must have heard that we are building on the border of India and Bhutan, bordering at Assam. So the demand forecast is 4,000 and above by 2040. And the way we generate electricity today is run of the river schemes. So we have today 2,500 megawatts of installed capacity actually, and we produce only 450 megawatts during the winter months, which is 1/4 to 1/5 of what is your installed capacity. So when you look at 4,000 megawatts to be your requirement or demand by 2040, we will have to put in about 20 to 25,000 megawatts of installed capacity. Based on that, recently, of course, we have just approved our roadmap. The earlier roadmap did not succeed. We were supposed to do 10,000 megawatts by 2020, which we started in 2008. For some reason, we could not achieve the 10,000 megawatts. But now we have decided to diversify, transform, and try to achieve 25,000 megawatts total installed capacity by 2040, of which 15,000 will be hydro and 5,000 will be solar. 2,500 already under operation, and about 3,000 which are under construction at the present time. To achieve that, of course, we have to work very closely with India, in that we need access to financing from Indian banks. We also need access to Indian energy markets. We are going to consume only 4,000 megawatts of the 25,000 megawatts that we expect to have by 2040. For that, it's very important this discussion is taking place today on the energy exchange, the trade that will take place between neighboring countries, and especially so for Bhutan, where we are aiming high now, hoping that things will go well. But the, to keep us in dialogue with India, it's very important that we are going to be investing quite heavily into hydropower and solar. There will be a lot of access, but that access will be available only during the summer months. We know that in India, you're producing a lot of solar power. Your demand is very high during the summer months. That 15,000, 20,000 megawatts will be a drop in the ocean. So I think when you plan now for 2047, to work with us, work with Nepal, to see where we can bring the cheaper power, reliable power, to supplement the investments you're making in wind and solar, and we think that it will go down very well. When you're considering the future, few things that we would like to request our Indian friends to look at. First of all, the import export, whether we have sufficient power or not, will continue because we are connected synchronously to your grid. Green Power Corporation would like to say that Bhutan is the only country, maybe as of today, which from May 2024 has become DSM compliant full time. And that is towards achieving grid stability to work very closely with the Indian grid. So we are following DSM regulations of India. To do that now, when we look at 2040, 15,000 megawatts, 20,000 megawatts. At the present time, although we're generating only about 2,500 megawatts, we have grid capacity for about 7,000 megawatts. But we need to plan the grid expansion, where the grid expansion will go take place, because you are investing quite a lot of money into the Northeast India for hydro. Yesterday, I think there was a lot of discussions on hydro and pump storage. We are hoping that when you plan your grids towards the Northeast, that you will put Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh also en route to see what our requirements will be and what should be the capacity. I think at the end, when 20,000 megawatts or 30,000 megawatts comes up, we should not be faced with similar problems as we are faced in cross-border trade today, where there's restriction of transmission assets which are not able to take away the generation that is available when you are not able to meet your own demand elsewhere. I think this is very, very important. When we're looking at being DSM compliant, for us to be also competitive in the market, we also look to India to consider the renewable power obligations for solar and wind and for hydro to be passed on to it. We also look at India to look at the ISTS charges to be waived wherever it is required, as you're doing for your own agencies in India. We are also looking at energy banking because this is a serious issue as far as Bhutan and Nepal. I'm not very sure about Nepal. Kunman, I'm sure, will speak for himself. But when we export, there is one tariff. When we import, there is another tariff. In the long term, that can only create criticism among the people. People to people relationships are very, very important. And I think energy banking is something that we need to really consider to ensure that there is parity in terms of energy being available. I think most important thing in grid connectivity is what was mentioned by Anish, also Talagankar had mentioned, that there must be some certainty. I don't think we should be coming to the authorities from time to time, from project to project, to get approvals. I think that approval endorsement must be a long-term arrangement where there is surety that this is going to happen. We cannot come annually and try to see whether we can sell that power or not. Otherwise, we will have no investors. And I would like to inform you that for the first time round, to achieve the 20,000 megawatts by 2040, we have allowed now private sector investments in hydropower in Bhutan. 49% is presently open. If you're not able to achieve what we want, maybe we'll consider further opening of the private sector to invest in hydropower. But solar, we allow already 100% investments to take place. So I think most importantly, I think when India plans for its future, energy sector. As you look at us from Bhutan, Nepal, I think it's very important that we get access to financing, we get access to energy market, free, flexible access to energy markets in India, very important. And I think the more important thing is now we hear very recently that Nepal, India, and Bangladesh have agreed for a small transfer of electricity from Nepal to Bangladesh. That has to open up. That needs to open up so that there are opportunities for all of us to benefit from that kind of market. I think BIMSTEC market was mentioned. Of course, SARC has not worked out, but hopefully BIMSTEC will come. But more than BIMSTEC, for us, we are looking at the BBIN as the immediate available low-hanging fruit that we can take forward in the energy trade that we are having with India at the present time. And not only surplus export, but also for imports that we do on a continuous basis. I think these are quite important, and we would like to just again thank the opportunity given to us to express some of the concerns that we have when we go into the future. As far as the planning is concerned, I think there's a need for more flexibility. We are willing to look at regulations, grid codes within ourselves to be in aligned to India, but on the other side, I think India will also need to be more flexible in terms of the access to the market and also access to financial markets in India. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a wonderful articulation. It is, and you really deserve that applause, because you not only brought out your concerns, but I think beautifully you brought out the symbiotic relationships which exist between various aspects, be it infrastructure, regulation, anything else, between conventional power and renewable energy, between various kinds of renewable energy, between uh, all of the demand supply in the various regions. All of them have to be thought together, and it's not always that we do that. We think of things in pieces rather than in totality. And we always try to bring something over there which stops it from reaching its full potential. So maybe that's the big message over here, that we need to look at the potential and the benefits which come out rather than the short term things which are happening. We also need to look at how the demand in various countries is changing and what is the unique position from which they come, from which they can help others as well as get helped. And I think you've been a position in Nepal, Bhutan. I want to go to Mr. Gising, MD, NEA, Nepal Electric Authority, whom I've had the privilege of working for long years now, in some form of engaging for long years now. For that view, and I was taken in by the comment which you made in the morning, that now 70% of new vehicle sales in Nepal are electric vehicles. Okay, that completely changes the dynamic in some sense, because it's a completely new kind of demand. We are seeing other kinds of demands coming, like data centers and others. May not be in Nepal, but in India definitely. So it's changing the demand profile as well. So we need our methods and regulations to be as flexible as they can be, so that they have the strength to cope with these changes which will inevitably come. So I want to go to you and get your views about how you see these changes coming in, and from Nepal's standpoint, what would be your asks to make sure that we are all benefiting from the trading arrangements, the markets, and the cross-border trading arrangements, Mr. Gising?
Thank, thank you. First of all, I would like to express my sincere uh, congratulations to Central Electricity Authority for having this Silver Jubilee event, and we thank CA for inviting in this discussion. Nepal, I think Nepal's perspective has already been delivered by Mr. Dasu. I think almost same perspective I want to deliver. I think our trading partners also expressed all the concerns that we want to deliver. I just want to mm, express some of the points that has been taking place within Nepal. For long years, we have been importing electricity from India. For last 3 years, we started export of electricity to India. Last year only we have we have been the next exporter of electricity to India. Around 2 billion units of electricity has been exported in the last fiscal year, and I think almost same uh, has, has been imported from India also. So this is a very good venture between India and Nepal. And recently, we have signed one tripartite agreement with Bangladesh, India, NBVN, and Nepal Electricity Authority to export 40 megawatt of power to Bangladesh. This is a very mm, landmark agreement that has created the way for regional market. I think beyond the border, we could export electricity using Indian grid. I think this is another milestone for utilizing cross-border guideline of India. India has uh, uh, formulated this guideline, and this this guideline has already mentioned that third country export is also allowed. We have now implemented this uh, issue also. So we are very happy that we are going to export 40 megawatt. It is a small amount, quantum, but it will create a huge meaning, a sense to this regional or sub-regional uh, trade of electricity. Within Nepal, we have been developing hydropower uh, for many years. Um, there are many private sectors, including Indian developers, big Satlas, and many developers are there. We have target of 28,000 megawatt in the next 10 years, 10 to 12 years. We have almost 3,500 megawatt uh, uh, operation. Unfortunately, this year we could export more than 1,000 megawatt because of heavy flood. Uh, Almost 1,000 megawatt power plants were out of operation. Some due to transmission transmission out of service, and some are disaster due to flood. So biggest plant in Nepal, for Tamakosi, is now not in operation because of flood. So there are many challenges for hydropower. So we used to export around 900 megawatt. We reduced to 200 to 300 megawatt. So there are many challenges. I think transmission line construction and expansion of transmission line is very important for regional trade of electricity. And building transmission line and financing the transmission line. The modality for transmission line financing is being a very critical part in this region. I think who will bear the capacity of the transmission? That become a very difficult part. So we are now constructing Butol Gorakhpur next second cross-border transmission line. That the transmission uh, cost price of transmission line is totally borne by Nepal Electricity Authority. I think we cannot build all the transmission line in that modality. I think how we can share the risk and how we can share the benefit of the transmission line. Sometimes transmission lines are underutilized, and most of the time, and sometimes we could not get the transmission line when we are in need of import or export. So this is very very important aspect that we have to look into it. And regular this approval process and so many approval process, it takes time. I think if we can get one-time approval for 3 years or 4 years for exchanges also, I think that could be very easy for us. And within Nepal, our demand is increasing day by day. I think 10 to 15% increment in demand is there within Nepal, and penetration of this EV is very encouraging. Everywhere. I think in total sales, the 60 to 70% penetration of electrical vehicle is there in Nepal. I think import of the petroleum product is now not in increasing trend. It is now in decreasing trend. So that will be the very good proposition for reducing our import and making the trade deficit, balancing the trade deficit. So and our generation is increasing, and same proposition that I want to say that Mr. Daso has already said that for 30 to 28,000 megawatt when we generate in wet dry season, it will be only one-fourth of the generation that we have to import also, because we have, our generation, our demand is increasing. So sometimes restriction in import, I think in day only import to only daytime import, that restricts us for importing power during the night time. So that I think that will somehow restrict the cross-border trade of electricity. We hope that everything will be open, and let's make this regional or at least BVIN platform for power trading, and that will encourage every country for trade of electricity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gison. Again, a wonderful articulation. I'm going to go to Dr. Ajay Mathur now, in the context of everything which has been mentioned about the need for flexibility. And we are just in the starting days of renewable energy. By the time we get to 2047, yesterday we heard that our installed capacity for renewable energy will be more than 2047 gigawatts. Today it's just about 150, just in a manner of speak. That's the size which we are talking about, with green hydrogen demand, everything coming in potentially. The system will require massive amount of flexibility, and it will also require a lot of infrastructure. Your thoughts, also in the context of the climate change impacts, which Mr. Gissing also talked about, there is increasing flooding, a lot of climate activities which are causing real kind of disturbances. How does the system cope up with these things when renewable penetration becomes so high? And in that context, if you want to talk about how the regional integration, which Mr. Taligaonkar talked about, and also the one sun, one OSOWOG, one world, one sun, one grid, if how does this all come together?
Thank you, Anish. I want to thank the CA for this opportunity. I think the CA has played a major role in bringing us to where we are. Ajay, I want to thank you for that presentation. But the key challenge lies ahead. I think we have the building blocks. So when we are looking at, say, 2070, when we've got carbon neutral India, we are looking at that time at a lot of renewable energy generation. You're talking about 2000 gigawatts. I would imagine something of the order of 1500 to 2000 gigawatts would have been in place by 2070. The problem is that the vast amount of it would be solar, which is available during the day. And work as you may, I mean, it all depends on how you draw the cost curves. Batteries are very expensive as a storage mechanism for long duration energy storage. So when we are looking at the long term, we have to look at the availability of electricity, both exports and imports, from neighboring countries as a mechanism for grid management. We don't want the grid to with electricity available during the day, but nothing is available during the night. The availability of hydroelectricity in at least two of our major neighbors allows electricity flows to occur so that we can have a constant supply of electricity. Now, what this means is that by 2070, we are looking at a mechanism in place through which a generator in Bhutan, for example, or a generator in Nepal can sell to a consumer in India or vice versa. But this is 2070. Let's look also, as you rightly said, at 2047 and at 2025. Because the building blocks that we build today will help us to reach that future. So, what is it that is important? What is very important right now is that we start putting in place the mechanism which will allow this growth to occur. It will allow the growth to occur for the inter-country transfer of electricity. It will allow the growth to occur for renewables. It will allow the availability of electricity at all times to consumers. So, what is needed? First of all, we need to see that the load dispatch centers have visibility. We are developing a huge amount of solar on rooftops. Most of it is downstream of meters and would not be visible to the load dispatchers. We need to look at mechanisms, we need to develop mechanisms through which this is visible or to the users, to the dispatcher side, so that both when you're generating and when you're using are made available. This needs technological inputs. We need to establish a mechanism that we would need this in place by, say, 2030 or so that we start developing it today. Second, we need to look at the mechanisms which my colleagues from Bhutan and Nepal talked about to enable the flow of electricity into these countries. Right now, we are looking at it as a mechanism for getting uh, the hydroelectricity from Nepal and Bhutan into India. But in the longer term, we are also looking at it in a way to make available this hydropower when solar power is not available in the bulk of India. What this implies is that at the, again, visibility from the point of view of the dispatcher needs to look at these countries as well. There are 2 points there. The first is architecture, the system architecture, because you would have to see how uh, you- how the system operator in Bhutan or in Nepal looks at the availability of electricity within the country. As was said, in both countries, the demand is increasing. But also, how does he look at what can be exported? Those are the areas where the technical and regulatory harmonization is necessary. The second issue is availability when. I mean, again, as you rightly said, it cannot be done on an ad hoc basis. But the flip side of it is, if it is not done on an ad hoc basis, then it must be visible about when are the resources available and when can they be made available, depending on the price. This implies building up larger amounts of connectivity between the countries. If we are looking at managing the prices of solar and at the same time their reliability of electricity supply to consumers, we are looking at short-term storage in terms of batteries, longer-term storage in terms of the hydroelectricity that is available, but medium term in terms of the availability of electricity across countries. Because as the One Sun, One World, One Grid suggests, the sun is always up somewhere in the world, and therefore a connectivity from West Asia to India and India to East Asia would imply that as the sun moves, you've got solar electricity being generated in different parts which can move with time. This obviously depends on cost. Costs obviously depend on how much electricity you move, how much do you move through subsea cables, how much do you move through terrestrial cables. I think we need to start looking at it now in order for it to be prepared, in order for us to be prepared tomorrow. Anish, I'll stop here.
Yeah.
And I have a huge number of things to say, but let's move on.
Let's pick those up from the other speakers as well, because you raised some issues about in architecture, of trading architecture, physical architecture. I want to go over to Mr. Soni now, and then to Professor Soman for their comments, because Mr. Soni, you've seen this. No, first Mr. Soni, I mean, and then we'll go to Professor Soman. Uh, just how do you see that architecture, which Dr. Mathur mentioned, evolving in the next 5 to 7 years, and then in the long term, to cope with this completely different scenario which we have in the region, which is high growth. It is not like the West, where there is stagnating demand or even declining demand. It is also a transformation of the portfolio, as we are seeing at the same time, because we are going much higher towards renewables. But we also have to recognize that the political integration is not like as it is in Europe. So there will be nuances over here. Okay, so how does this all come together?
Thank you very much. Now, after listening to Daso Rinzin, Sri Gising, and all the experts, it's a challenge. First of all, let me start very nostalgically. 1978, I joined CEA. At that time, there were a couple of dozen frequencies in India, and every alternate day, something or other will collapse. At the same time, Jal Dhaka shared project with Bhutan was there, and we were feeding 66 kV cement factories in Bhutan. Tanakpur had come and the radial supply to Nepal. Since then, I have seen many chairmen, member and secretaries holding meetings after meetings for one connection. Today, we have an all India grid, such strong interconnections with neighbors. Step by step, all these have been resolved, and there is no doubt that we will go further. I congratulate CA in taking lead. It's a time consuming process. Our unit of time is decade. Nothing happens earlier than that. And that has to be reduced. That is for certain. Coming to cross border specifically, there are market experts, 3 exchanges, traders, and everybody. Market is an experiment going on throughout the world. It will change from energy only to capacity to ancillary to derivatives. All those things will happen. But if we can create the ecosystem, then market will quickly adapt to it. But physical infrastructure takes time, and that has to be put into place. Then we will be prepared for any kind of market which will come. Besides market economics, number of times both Mr. Gising and Daso Rinzin mentioned is about the full authority from our ministry and CA and CRC, extend all cooperation. We open up all the lines. We are standing there to see that best of cooperation is given. That is the value which an interconnector brings. When Bangladesh storm came, we said, how much you want us to reduce? At what rate you want to reduce? We will immediately increase. The 1000 megawatt HVDC was acting as a generator which can ramp up, ramp down at very fast speed, go to 1000 to 0 to again to 1000. That kind of theoretical, hypothetical, most flexible generator was used. And that is the strength of interconnection with neighbors. Having high capacity but low energy is an excellent problem to have in today's scenario. That is exactly what we want. The diurnal and the seasonal exchanges which are happening with hydro predominant neighbors, lovely neighbors, is such a boon. When their demand goes down, this side demand goes up. And hydro is easily converted from energy to peakers. But we need to value water. We need to have marginal prices decided inside the country so that the markets will pick up those signals. These infrastructure has to be created. Coming to ecosystem and building blocks, absolutely essential. It took us quite some time in India, almost a decade and a half, to bring to this level, and now the market is functioning. I was very happy to hear, Dasha, that DSM has been taken. But there are many other things which have to be set right, like transmission pricing, the treatment of losses, how we schedule, how do we account. These things must be put in place. Of course, handling your own regulators, but that we can all harmonize. Once we have that, then the exchanges and the traders will bring in more liquidity into the market, and we don't have to worry about that. Coming to interconnectors, listening to Sai Saab and the chairperson and secretaries, it gives me a feeling that our interconnectors aspiration is low. And continental Europe has already started working in that direction. What it says is like this: whether I will trade or not, how much I will trade or not is a secondary thing. That will depend from time to time and over the years, depending on your load generation balance, technology, and other things. But at least you should have a target of interconnectors. For example, can you import 100% power and meet your demand? Let's say if you have a cheapest power available, can you do that? Can you export your entire power even if your demand is zero? That's the kind of extremum boundary value problem which has to be tested as far as the interconnectors are concerned. In India, the states which have strongest interconnection make best use of market. So my humble suggestion would be, as far as the cross-border interconnection is concerned, we should have 100% either side import and export capability. Once we have built that, then market will find its own way and make use of that. Last few things, battery is being talked about, storage is being talked about, but being an operator and handling large grid gives you a feel what a battery is. For example, Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh should look at the large grid as their battery, 1,000 megawatt, this way, that way, within seconds, and it works. And grid will come to your rescue at any time. Larger balancing area is something which all the professors are telling us that you should have that. And that is exactly what we are going to. So coming to the, winding up my long, unwieldy, experiences, first thing, as far as the interconnection is concerned, let's be very liberal, because you have only two choices: either get ridiculed now for overinvestment in transmission, or get cursed by your next generation for having underbuilt. I would say that let us overbuild now, notwithstanding criticism by economists, so that we can make use of it. Tomorrow, the right of way is going to be difficult. Constructing lines in this hilly terrain is another extremely difficult job. We know how it is. So that is one thing which we should do. The second is create an ecosystem. Ecosystem means metering, settlement, deviation. Run your own economic dispatch, which Mr. Talegaonkar mentioned. See, if you are talking about market, you must have your own price. Not that the market price should dictate to you what to buy, what to sell. Yes, of course, we will look at the market, but you can influence the market price. That's the kind of a power which our neighbors hydro flexibility have. Thank you very much. Let me stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Suni. As always, you made a couple of points which are heretic. Because you said that high capacity and low energy is exactly what we want. That's contrary to how people have been thinking till now. So we are turning a thinking process which has existed for maybe 100 years on its head. and saying that be liberal on interconnections, be liberal on transmission, because that's going to really help you save it. And you also answered my previous point, which was on natural incidences. How do we react to that? And that's what you beautifully brought out, saying that your interconnectors are your battery wherever it happens. I'm going to go over to Professor Soman. You know, picking up on that, and you worked on the point of connection tariffs, you worked on market design. You react to that situation because that has a cost. Okay. And is that cost affordable, bearable? I know that it is desirable, but how does it play out?
Yeah. Thanks, Anish. So, I mean, first of all, I always say that we have to think big if we want to be secure. So, I have always been, in that sense, in sync with Mr. Suni about having a strong grid, enough installed capacity, and going forward, I am actually a big proponent of storage, even if it is costly. I am a big proponent of EV cars, even if people feel a bit worried when they drive out of the city. And if majority of the cars go on to EV, the kind of burden that it will bring onto the grid will also be a big opportunity for the grid, for the distribution companies, etc., to tap upon. That's a big market there for distribution companies to sort of take off. Now, uh, I think that one of the things which I wanted to say when I came here was I think storage has to be brought into markets. The storage based products have to transform the markets as we go forward, and we should bring those products now, even if the volume is not significant, because bringing products is doing analytics, and digital products, once people start seeing products, they know they have to invest there, because there is something in those things, in those products, which can make them build business. And now when we talk of bringing storage as a product, given that it still has that worrisome taboo, especially battery, about having higher costs, there are two aspects of it. One is the long term, which we talk in terms of capacity markets. So whether the storage should be procured by a transmission system operator or independent system operator as a transmission system asset and used for different activities like frequency regulation, ancillary service, voltage VAR optimization, ancillary service, we could start doing that, because when tomorrow thermal generators go down, not only will the inertia go down with them, but so will the governors which are functioning on them will also go down. And then the frequency in the grid will be going up and down, and so would be probably the blood pressure of the system operators. And Mr. Suni will feel happy that he is not a system operator right now, but others would probably be having a horrid time. But if the storage as an ancillary market is available for frequency regulation, and they are able to tap in and replace that primary governor action, inertia action with the storage, it would be wonderful thing to do. Batteries would do that job very well. We did once PhD study using about 300 gigawatt grid, and what we came to the conclusion was that a half an hour battery suffices. Power rating will be a larger rating, but the energy wise only half an hour battery suffices. So for storage can be brought in as ancillary services quickly. Now other thing is storage can mitigate congestion. I know Mr. Suni is again all India grid congestion management, locational marginal pricing. These are the key factors that he would always be worrying about. And storage can play a entirely transforming role in there. How do the prices get influenced when the storage is there, sometimes acting as a load, sometimes acting as a supply? It also helps you to control the renewable drought. And that renewable drought control again brings you arbitrage opportunities for the storage player. He could really benefit out of it. When the renewable is cheap, he is pumping in as a load, and then in the night, he would get a better price and he would be selling it, and that arbitrage would probably pay for some of his capital costs and investments that he is doing. But for that, again, the storage has to come as a market. Now we also need for renewables some products which are like chance constraint. If you look at optimal power flow as of now today, people are now not talking of traditional optimal power flow, but they are talking of chance constraint, joint chance constraint optimal power flow. That is, optimal power flow is incorporating stochastic natures of the constraint. Can we have something in the products domain in the power exchange which sort of takes care of the chance constraint? So we have a chance constraint renewable products which are coming into the picture. And then I'll close with one of my favorite things, so that Mr. Sooni and Mr. Talegaonkar, they should not think कि सोमन बदल गया है. When we did POC with you, remember Anish? So point of connection tariff we did. I used to talk about min-max fairness for cost allocation. I think the corollary of it, which is the max-min fairness, would probably work to provide a very nice equal playing field for resource optimization with storage. So those are some things that we should again start revisiting and relooking into. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing that together with that Maximin philosophy. That's for another day, and I think we need a lot more detailed technical deliberations in the context of this. This conversation has been to be brought down from this level, which is quite sophisticated, to another level of detail where we can actually plan these things out in terms of what they mean for various aspects, including the customer prices, the user prices as well. Now, but thanks for bringing the battery elements in. One point which you mentioned, less like we are talking of flexibility through markets and the infrastructure, which is going to support the markets. The product flexibility is super important, and you should not categorize batteries as a kind of product. There are so many value streams which come out. They should be allowed to interface freely in the market. Do you want to make an additional comment?
Yeah. On that one point, I just want to make, see, PRB is one of the problems with the paradoxically rejection of bits is one of the issues with the current exchanges. But the battery could be that buffer which allows you the flexibility in the volumes with the problems that you have with the thermal technologies, fossil fuel technologies, and they could probably, if these products come and combine themselves with the big thermal units, that would bring you that kind of a flexibility that we want. I mean, I know markets work continuously towards that, but this would be a key player in getting rid of that PRB worries.
Right. Thank you. With that, let's go to Satyajit Ganguly. Then it's a best Q&A for you, because we talked about the batteries and the various kinds of flexibility products which need to come on the market and elements of market design which need to change. We'll just be very quick, because from now on, because we're coming towards the end of the time, 1.5 hours was never going to be adequate for this anyway. But Satyajit.
Thank you, Anish. At the onset, again, thanks to CA. I'm a bit nostalgic. Yes, I joined this parent organization long back, 38 years back, and I'm very happy to see CA organizing that. The distinguished panel has discussed most of the facets of market. I will just try to touch upon certain areas where I felt we need to give more emphasis. One is because of our emphasis on 500 gigawatt of renewables, lot of renewables coming up. I'm summing it up. And not getting PPA, so there has to be a market exchange. I understand my friend from IEX talked about capacity market, but then along with capacity market, we have to think of perhaps some of the other auction mechanisms which are very popular across the world, maybe CFD, but then the problem also is it needs single price. I will not go beyond that. I mean, the first point. The second one.
You can go beyond that. I think there has been a problem with the price discovery mechanism,
Yes,
even in the day-ahead market, and the way we have
I will
split
not
the.
go beyond that because there is the process going on in CRC and all.
Okay.
Yes,
So it's
I
like
think
being
I
sub
thought.
judice, so let's not discuss, but we hope that a good outcome
Thank you.
comes out of
Then,
that.
then I would say that market coupling is the solution for that. That's the first point. The second one is I agree that particularly for our interconnections, maybe in future for BITSMEC or OSOGO or even Asian, our products in exchange has to be more on longer term. And with the implementation of GNA, I think 11 months should come very handy, and might be in future some more. I did some study. I am also a legal, I have studied LLB. Actually, nowhere in our grid code it is mentioned that exchanges do work only on short term. So there is absolutely no restriction for exchanges to make the tenure of long-term products, particularly because it does offer more liquidity and perhaps softer prices. Thirdly, I would also say that though there had been some products like SRAS or TRAS which are in operation in our exchange, somehow the liquidity has not come up. We need to gather more traction in ancillary services, but then pricing has to be done for that. Uh, Thirdly, I feel this time has come for exchanges to offer REC asserts and maybe in future carbon credit products to our neighboring countries. And lastly, because you talked about that, so let me say that we are talking about MBED and then perhaps after SCED, of course. Uh, but we don't have the fractured market. So that's why I again feel that uniform pricing and market coupling is the key to progress. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing those out, because I think avoiding fractured markets is a lesson we forgot very easily. We need to bring it back. And I think that's for Mr. Talekaukar's thing again, between not just the players, not to intersect between the players, but between the various products. The price signaling needs to be clear for other markets to come in, the derivative markets to come in. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of confusion. Now, I'm going to go to Mr. Oja of HPX. And before that, I wanted to acknowledge Mr. Sahai, who was a power secretary at the time when the debate between CERC and SEBI got resolved, because that was one thing which was holding up the market for reasons which are not completely clear. I mean, there were lots of detailed reasons, but the high level reason between two entities which are, regulatory bodies not being able to resolve those was always a wonder for me. But fortunately for you, sir, I think we are in a much better place now. We are talking about the 11-month products which you're talking about. Now, Mr. Oja, just picking up that point and very quickly on how do you see that now yielding different kinds of products, physical, financial products, which will help the market, including CBET, but also the domestic market?
Anish, thanks for giving this opportunity. First of all, I've heard my distinguished panelist speak about the market and the market products. Two things, which I've heard, and I'm a bit kind of say made to think about it, is what Mr. Dashu said. One is uh, our neighbor contemplating 49% equity or 49%, more than 49% to somebody who is going to invest in Bhutan is something which is, as a country, should be a concern for us. And I'll leave it to that. And the second point, which one of our the second neighbor has said about, Nepal and Bhutan have a special place for India and the entire geostrategy, strategic terms. So Nepal seeking, highlighting the fact that they have done some kind of trade with Bangladesh, and though is minuscule in terms of what we as in Indian market see it as. But that's a signal that yes, this point has been highlighted by Mrs. Soni also, that the cross border would not take off till we as a big brother start thinking about this whole geographical area as one particular entity, and it's our responsibility as a country to see that it happens. And why to restrict ourselves to Bhutan, and why to restrict ourselves to Nepal and Bangladesh? The head of state was recently into Laos and Cambodia and Thailand, and I see a great opportunity there. I mean, the country should start thinking of there was a talk of I mean Mr. Gadkari saying that if you move from Mumbai to Mot in Manipur to Thailand and through road. So if we can think in terms of having, let me reiterate one point. I mean, this entire crux of this theorem is transportation is one thing which is holding back India. I mean, this is a clear belief I have. Either it is air, or it is road, or it is gas, or it is waterways, or it is electricity. Transmission and distribution, I will club together and then call it popularly as logistics or transportation. So transportation in every segment, or either it is railways. And for last, unfortunately, for last 60, 65 years, we haven't had much of capex in these kind of, in the transportation sector. I mean, 35 kilometers per day of NHI and Vande Bharat and the high speed trains, the bullet ones. I mean, we are conceived and we are actually formulated bullet trains and all those. So if you see the gas pipelines and all those things are also coming up. So transportation is actually one thing which is holding up India, and internally also. If you see the dispersion of electricity in India, I mean, to be very candid, the eastern part of India is still something where there are, or for the central part of India, there are pockets, or say for deep south, there are pockets where I mean, transportation of this commodity called electricity is still a concern. So not outside India, also but within India. But coming back to that point of cross border, I mean, how we need to get on is why not have a transportation system for electricity as we have. Mr. Gadkari has done it for, I mean, from Mumbai to through Mode to Thailand for electricity. And for that matter, why not extend it to Laos and right now down to Vietnam? And why I'm saying that is because Mr. Gentleman from Nepal has raised this point that Nepal is selling to Bangladesh. So if we, as a big brother, could handle this connection points and lay down this roadmap, which I completely agree with Mr. Soon, is whether it is, I'm a finance person and I know the viability of projects. So whether it is viable or not, if we have this transportation thing straight across from here to there, because on the left side of the map, we don't have any visibility except for if you go down deep in UAE. And for the only option we have is to go right, and down. So if we can have this transportation system from starting from Nepal through Bangladesh to Bhutan and Myanmar, Thailand, and say Vietnam, you would have a good opportunity not only for us as a big brother, but also for this small country. Recently, I was going through an article where Thailand is going through a crisis, and it's 75% of its electricity is through gas. And Ukraine and something which is happening in Europe has probably disturbed them, and they have taken up most of their this thing from Laos, which is hydropower censoring. So Nepal and Bhutan being hydro surplus kind of entity, why can't they think of going down to Thailand? And that will kind of balance out the requirement, and because they're worried about uh, the product being sold out, and they're equally worried about having the same product back when there is a kind of a rough phase, that's a dry phase. And
Can I request you to wrap
yeah.
up, because I've been instructed that we are holding
Yeah, so
the next session.
so integrity and transportation would be one thing which I'm very passionate about, and second thing is we need to have this bottom up approach of having integration within the cities, within the country, and then pushing it from top, so that at one layer you have transmission, which is being pumped with investment, and then a massive investment is required in the distribution. Because if we want to separate it that way, because until that happens, we would probably having a market which is skewed as it is right now.
You're right.
Essentially.
Thank you. Mr. Shyam Kumar, just your closing thing, because we are indeed on time, or little out.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. In fact, all respected panelists have already covered all the subjects. So, but as a trader, we are in fact winding up the things. So, the different topics were covered, like the harmonization of regulations and policies. So, all those the technical aspects are already covered. There are committees handling all this cross-border. Yeah, the cross-border trade handling, the bodies are already there. This JC, JWG, and the JOC, JTT. What I see that, in fact, as our transactions are increasing, so our this cross-border entities, they are right now, the expectation of the pace of transaction is little more. But I see that as the transactions increases, there are associated harmonization in the policies also required. Right now, when we see that the first thing is that the accounting, metering, all those things are settled, but associated deviations and whatever those deviations can be either through normal operation or through natural calamities. The connectors are there; it can technically be taken care, but at the end of day, it needs to be settled. So there comes the harmonization of regulations and procedures, and we all have to agree to that and understand that needs to be brought out. And thirdly, we also have our own experience in our country after the this notification of Electricity Act and coming of regulatory commissions. Our sector grown like anything. So, in the similar manner, I understand that with my limited experience in this cross-border trade, that if this harmonization of this, even the dispute settlement system also among the BVN countries, participating countries, if it can happen. So I understand this, the whole, the permission and the approval process and settlement, commercial, everything can be settled. So this was.
Right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, thank you for that. And we coming to a close. I want to close with one point which we were talking about, where especially Mr. Oja talked about going to Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. Last year, there was a 100 megawatt line which started between Laos and Singapore. And that was a reason for a lot of congratulatory self congratulation and stuff, because this was, though they are not so far away, it was like unique. It's never happened before. Uh, and this year, when I went back to Singapore, there was a little bit of despondency that, oh, nothing is moving beyond that 100 megawatts. Okay, so I think first thing is that we have to recognize that some of these things take time and it takes a lot of sustained effort to make it happen. But when it happens, you actually can achieve a lot of other alignments which you normally wouldn't get. You can make that happen through electricity. One of the reasons why things don't flow from Laos or Vietnam into Singapore is because Malaysia is in between, and it has its own concerns, but there are politics involved. But the moment you expand that, take a wider picture, some of those politics becomes diffused. It subsides, and you have the ability to get the overall systems together, build infrastructure. But that infrastructure becomes only effective when you have harmonized trading arrangements within the regions and around the regions. And that's what Europe has shown us, that despite being so disparate, everybody is saying that that's not possible. Today, Europe really trades electricity very, very efficiently across 27, 28 countries, multiple jurisdictions. It is happening. I think we have made a good start here. There's a lot of distance to cover from here, more not so much in the concept. I think the concept has moved forward, but in terms of making sure that that concept or the promise or the agreement which we have at the high level actually translates into actions. And CA's role, of course, is going to be very, very instrumental in that accord, along with other policymakers and regulators. Thank you. This has been a wonderful session. I have pages and pages of notes. I'm just hoping that somebody won't ask me to transcribe that. Ajay won't ask me to transcribe that. But subject to that, you've been a wonderful panel. Thank you so much.
Since Dr. Mathur has to leave, so we'd quickly request you all to get up for the group picture. Shri Day at the start expressed his delight at welcoming constellation of stars in the panel, and at the conclusion of it, we can effectively say that we could see celestial synergy here in the panel and in the discussion. And as promised at the start, we were imparted a holistic approach, short, medium, and long term explained well. We'd request all the panelists to not get off the stage yet because we'd also be felicitating you. We understand Dr. Mathur has to leave. So, quickly, just performing the felicitations. For that, we'd request Sri Ajay Talgaonkar, and we'd also request the mementos to be fetched. The mementos and the mementos, if we can have those. One of those to be quickly handed to Dr. Ajay Mathur, Director General, International Solar Alliance. Sri Talgaonkar doing the honors. We have a very beautiful memento waiting for you, sir. So let's hear it for our panelists as they get honored for the insights that they provided us with. Sri Ajay Talgaonkar honoring Dr. Ajay Mathur. Thank you, sir. And now we'd request Sri Ajay Talgaonkar to hand over the memento to Sri Anish Dey, our moderator. We're grateful to him for this very engaging discussion that we just got to witness. Shri Kulman Singh to be honored now. May the applauses continue. Shri Dasho Chivang Rinzin. Shri Manoj Kumar Jhavar. Shri S.K. Suni. Shri Rohit Bajaj. Shri Satyajit Ganguly. Maybe louder. Shri Shyam Kumar. Shri Ashok K. Ojha. Dr. S.A. Soman. I can see our moderator setting the example here with how the decibels should be with regards to the applause. And now we'd invite Dr. Bhupinder Singh, Chief Energy Security, CII, to felicitate Shri Talgaonkar. Let's welcome him with a roaring round of applause because the session is about to come to a close. A big thank you to all our panelists. There is high tea waiting for you outside, but also a quick announcement. So, the kit that you received during the registration carried this form. So, we'd request you to fill this form and submit it at the counter. You'd get another kit in return. So, this is the form that you received as you registered at the counter. We'd request you to fill this up with the information asked for, and then in return, you'd receive another kit. Once again, a big thanks to our panelists and also all the members of the audience for their support and for them to be a part of this discussion.